This video we will be looking at some word problems dealing with dividing fractions by whole numbers and whole numbers by fractions. This will be 5.3L if you're looking at the TEKS. There's a companion assignment that goes with this, and there's also another video dealing just with computation. So if you need computation practice, check that one out. This is really, we're going to spend a lot of time decoding the word problems on this. We're going to go through every problem on the companion assignment. All right, number one. Catherine bought a 9-pound bag of rice. She uses 1/4 pound of rice in one recipe. How many batches of her recipe could Catherine make to use all of her rice? All right, so the biggest error that students make when they are dividing with fractions is how to set the problem up. And the first thing we always want to put is whatever we are going to divide. So whatever object or thing or item, whatever it is physically that we are going to split up into either multiple pieces or that we're going to split up into specific size sections, as we are with this one. So, and what that is for this is this 9-pound bag of rice. That's the thing that we're gonna separate. That's the thing that's being divided. So that's the first number in our problem. All right, 9 pounds. The second number is how we're going to divide it. Spell divide. Or what we are dividing by. And in this case, we're going to divide into 1/4 pound sections, because that's what she uses for each batch. For each batch in the recipe, she uses 1/4 pounds. So we've got this 9-pound bag. That's what we're dividing. And we're going to divide it up into 1/4 pound sections. All right. Once we get to this point, it's just a matter of completing the computation, which for most people is pretty simple. The thing you have to remember, though, is whatever we're dividing by, we're going to invert that number and then rewrite the problem. What I mean by invert is I just mean flip it. All right, and so I'm just going to write flip. And I'll do this on most of the problems just kind of as a reminder. So I'm going to rewrite the problem as 9 pounds times 4/1 pounds. And I'm going to change this to 9/1. And then I'm simply going to multiply across. So I'm going to multiply 9 times 4, which is going to give me 36. 1 times 1 gives me 1. And so 36/1 is just going to give me 36. And this is actually 36 batches is my answer. And again, this part's pretty simple. Once we get it to this point, it's setting it up correctly that a lot of students are making mistakes on. All right, let's look at the next one. Number 2. Monique baked chocolate muffins. She added 1/4 cup of sugar to the muffin batter and then divided the batter equally into 8 sections of the muffin pan. What fraction of a cup of sugar will each muffin contain? All right, so this one's a little trickier because the thing that we are dividing is this 1/4 cup of sugar. That's what we're dividing. We're going to divide up that 1/4 cup of sugar. And we're going to divide it into 8 sections. So we're going to divide it into the 8 sections of the pan. Now this one's a little different because in this first problem we had a whole number that we were dividing by a fraction. This one we're dividing a fraction by a whole number. All right. But process stays the same. Whatever we're dividing by, we're going to flip that and then we're going to change our division symbol to a multiplication symbol. So this is going to become 1/4 times 1 over 8. Because my 8 becomes an 8 over 1, and then I just flip it. And then I multiply across. 1 times 1 gives me 1, 4 times 8 gives me 32. And so each muffin contains 1/32 cup of sugar. Alright, on to the next one. Jeremy was cooking chili with his special chili powder. He put 1/8 cup of chili powder in the batch he was cooking. If this batch of chili will feed 8 people, how much chili powder will each person end up eating? Alright, so this one is similar to the last one in that we're starting out with a fraction because this 1/8 is a 1/8 cup of chili powder. That's what we've got. That's what's being divided up. So that's my first number, and then I'm going to divide it. I need to feed 8 people, so I'm going to divide by 8. And the 8th is my number of people. This is how it's being divided. So once again, I have to flip. And I'm putting the 8 as an 8 over 1 just as a reminder that when I flip it over, it's going to become 1 over 8. I flip the number that I'm going to be dividing by, and so this ends up being 1/8. Oop, forgot to change my sign. Times 1/8, because I flipped this 8 over 1 to give me 1 over 8. And then I'm just going to multiply across. 1 times 1 gives me 1. 8 times 8 gives me 64. And so my answer is 1/64 cup of chili powder. All right, on to the next page, on to number 4. All right, number 4. Dalen put a total of 1/4 pounds of gravel into 6 fish tanks. She put the same amount of gravel in each tank. How many pounds of gravel did Dalen put in each fish tank? So in this one, similar to the last couple in that what I'm starting with, what I have here is an 1/8 pound of gravel. That's what I'm starting with. I've got an 1/8 pound of gravel, and I need to divide it up into 6 different fish tanks. So I've got to divide this evenly into 6 tanks. So I've got 1/8 pounds of gravel that I'm going to divide and put into 6 tanks. All right. So once again, I'm going to flip what I'm dividing by. So that becomes 6 over 1. Rewrite. So this becomes 1/8 pounds times 1 over 6. And then I'm just going to simply multiply across. 1 times 1 gives me 1. 8 times 6 gives me 48. And so each tank has 1/48 pound of gravel in it. All right, on to number 5. Kevin cut 32 feet of chain into pieces that were each 1/4 foot long. How many of these pieces did Kevin have after cutting? All right, we don't need this last part. Ignore that. Don't have a griddable on this, so I'm just going to put my information here. So we start out with a 32-foot piece of chain. And what he's doing is he's dividing it up into 1/4 foot long pieces. So we're dividing it up into 1/4 foot pieces. And when we see this keyword cut, it's usually going to tell us divide. Just kind of as a little extra note. If we're cutting things up into pieces, pieces also will be a hint. All right. Now this one is similar to number 1, where we've got a whole number that we're dividing by a fraction. So we're going to flip what we're dividing by, and then we're going to rewrite it. So I end up with 32 times 4 over 1. Go ahead and make that by 32 over 1. 32 times 4 gives me 128. 1 times 1 is 1. 128 over 1 is just 128. And it's actually 128 pieces. Didn't circle my answer from earlier. All right. Now, Mr. Beckwith did not do good when he was setting this up because he was copying and pasting from old assessments, and apparently I got lazy and used pretty much the exact same question. So everything we did here just goes right here. It's the exact same question. Literally same wording and everything. But instead of Kevin, it was Amy. Same numbers and everything. I need to do a little bit better job checking these before I print them out. All right, number 7. 4 friends split. Good word telling me I'm dividing. Split a half-pound bag of peanuts at the circus. How much does each friend receive if they split the bag of peanuts evenly? Now, this one's a little tricky, and I think it's probably the trickiest one of them all because we're given the number of friends first, and then we're given the bag of peanuts second. And so you might be quick to go, okay, we've got 4 divided by 1/2, and so that's going to equal 4. I'm going to flip that, and we're going to multiply by 2 over 1, and that's going to give me 8 over 1, which is 8. Now, the problem with that is, if you think for a moment, I started with a half-pound bag, and then I split it up in between 4 people, and each person got 8 pounds. Well, that doesn't make any kind of sense. So that's not it at all. So be careful that you don't make that mistake when you're setting these problems up. You have to think, what am I starting with? What am I splitting up? Well, I'm splitting up this half-pound bag of peanuts. So that's what we start with, is that half-pound bag. And then we're going to divide it in between the 4 friends. And when we do that, I'm going to go ahead and flip this. So we end up with 1/2 pound times 1/4. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 4 is 8. And so each friend gets 1/8 pound of peanuts, which makes a lot more sense than each friend getting 8 pounds. So when you're doing these, make sure you read the questions very, very carefully and think, what are we splitting up? What are we dividing? And how are we going to divide it? So this is the what, and this is the how. What we're dividing, how we're dividing it. Make sure you answer those 2 questions as you're setting these problems up.